The rain wasn't falling, it was weeping. Cold, relentless tears slicked the cracked pavement of the alley, turning discarded wrappers into sodden ghosts and the air into a shroud of damp concrete and despair. Sarah hunched deeper into her thin coat, the walk from the late shift at the diner stretching longer than the 6 blocks it was. Headlights sliced through the gloom, illuminating the glistening walls for a fleeting second before plunging her back into near darkness. That's when she saw it. A shadow detaching itself from a mound of overflowing bins, moving with a limp that spoke of agony barely endured. Not a rat, too large, too deliberate. A cat. It moved towards her, not with the skittishness of a street creature, but with a terrifying single-minded focus, its eyes catching the distant neon signs glow like chips of haunted amber. And clutched in its jaws, impossibly small and impossibly still, was a tiny bundle of sodden fur. A kitten. Lifeless? Sarah's breath hitched, her knees threatening betrayal on the greasy asphalt. The mother cat's gaze locked onto hers, a silent, desperate plea cutting through the drumming rain. Sarah froze, the world narrowing to the gaunt silhouette and its fragile burden. The mother cat, for that's what she had to be, was skeletal. Ribs stood out like the struts of a derelict ship beneath her matted charcoal gray fur. One hind leg dragged uselessly, leaving a smeared trail on the wet ground. But it was her eyes that held Sarah captive. Exhaustion warred with a ferocious, almost supernatural intensity. They weren't just begging, they were commanding. Take it, help it. Sarah found herself moving before conscious thought, dropping her grocery bag with a wet thud. She knelt, the icy water instantly soaking through her jeans, her hands outstretched, trembling. Okay, she breathed, the words stolen by the wind. Okay, sweetheart, let me see. The mother cat didn't relinquish her burden immediately. She hesitated, a low, pained rumble vibrating in her chest, her eyes darting between Sarah's face and the limp kitten. Rain plastered Sarah's hair to her forehead, stinging her eyes, but she held still, projecting calm she didn't feel. Slowly, agonizingly slowly, the cat limped the final step. Her head dipped, and with infinite gentleness that belied her feral appearance, she laid the tiny creature onto Sarah's waiting palms. The kitten was no bigger than Sarah's hand, fur plastered dark and slick, cold as river stone. Its chest was terrifyingly still. Sarah's heart hammered against her ribs like a trapped bird. Too late? The thought was a cold knife. "Come on, little one," Sarah whispered, her voice thick. She instinctively pulled the kitten close against her own chest, trying to shield it from the rain, to impart some warmth. She fumbled one hand free, pressing trembling fingers against the kitten's tiny chest. Nothing. No flutter, no rise. Panic, sharp and acidic, rose in her throat. She looked down at the mother cat, who hadn't moved. The feline sat rigidly, watching, her amber eyes unblinking pools of ancient sorrow and unwavering focus. Why bring a dead kitten? Why choose her? The questions buzzed like trapped flies, drowned by the immediate, crushing weight of the tiny life slipping away in her hands. "Not here," Sarah muttered, forcing herself into action. Scooping the kitten securely against her with one hand, she awkwardly gathered her abandoned grocery bag with the other. "Come on, Mama," she urged the cat. "Follow me, please." She stood, her legs protesting the cold and the sudden burden of responsibility. To her astonishment, the mother cat tried. She pushed herself up, wobbling precariously on her 3 good legs, the useless hind limb dangling. She managed a few stumbling steps after Sarah, her breath coming in ragged, wet gasps that tore at Sarah's soul. Then, with a soft whimper, she collapsed onto her side, her ribs heaving, eyes still fixed on Sarah and the kitten. Sarah stopped, torn. She couldn't carry them both. The kitten needed warmth now. Every second felt like sand slipping through an hourglass. "I'll come back," she promised, the words feeling hollow against the drumming rain. "I swear. Just hold on." She turned and ran, the limp kitten cradled like the most fragile blown glass against the pounding of her own heart. The image of the mother cat collapsed and watching her go, burned into her mind, a silent accusation, a desperate gamble placed solely on her. Her tiny apartment felt cavernous and sterile when she burst through the door. She kicked it shut, discarded her bag, and raced to the small bathroom. Setting the kitten gently on the closed toilet lid, she cranked the hot water tap in the sink, steam billowing instantly. She grabbed the softest towel she owned, burying it under the hot water, wringing it out until it was just bearable. With trembling hands, she wrapped the tiny form, rubbing gently, desperately, trying to stimulate life, to chase away the deathly chill. The kitten remained limp, a damp, silent weight. Sarah's own breath came in short, sharp gasps. She lowered, her ear to its minuscule chest. Silence. Utter, terrifying silence. Tears blurred her vision, hot and helpless. "Breathe," she pleaded, her voice cracking. "Please, little fighter, just breathe." She remembered a fragment of a CPR video for kittens. Tiny breaths, gentle compressions. Was it even possible? It felt absurd, hopeless, but the memory of those ancient amber eyes filled with a belief Sarah couldn't comprehend pushed her on. She tilted the kitten's head back slightly, covered its nose and mouth entirely with her own lips, and breathed the smallest puff of air she could manage into its lungs. She felt the tiny chest rise fractionally. Hope, frail as a spiderweb, flickered. She did it again. Then, placing 2 fingers on its chest, she pressed down with feather-light pressure, counting silently. 1, 2, 3, breathe. 1, 2, 3, breathe. Time dissolved into the rhythm of desperate hope and crushing fear. The towel cooled. She rewarmed it under the tap. Her lips grew numb from the tiny breaths. Her fingers ached from the minute compressions. Minutes stretched like hours. The kitten remained still, cold. The flicker of hope guttered, threatened to die. Exhaustion and despair washed over Sarah in a cold wave. She had failed. She had failed the mother cat. She had failed this tiny scrap of life. She slumped back against the bathroom cabinet, the damp towel cradling the kitten in her lap, tears finally spilling freely down her cheeks. "I'm sorry," she whispered to the empty room, to the mother cat waiting in the rain, to the tiny soul, already gone. "I'm so sorry." She closed her eyes, the weight of failure unbearable. That's when she felt it. The faintest tremor. Like the brush of a moth's wing against her palm, deep within the folds of the towel. Her eyes flew open. Had she imagined it? She held her breath, every sense screamingly alert, staring down at the tiny bundle. Nothing. Just the dripping of the faucet and the frantic hammering of her own heart. Then, there, again. A tiny, almost imperceptible twitch, then a minuscule gasp. A shudder ran through the cold little body, followed by another shallow, rasping intake of air. Sarah froze, disbelief holding her captive. The kitten's chest rose, fell, rose again. Shallow, fragile, but undeniably there. A sob escaped Sarah's throat, half relief, half hysteria. "You're here," she breathed, her voice trembling with awe. "You came back." She carefully unwrapped the towel slightly, revealing the tiny face. The eyes were still closed, but a pinkish hue was slowly replacing the bluish pallor around its nose. Its breathing, though weak, was rhythmic now. It was alive. Against impossible odds, it was alive. A fragile, trembling joy bloomed in Sarah's chest, warming her from the inside out. She carefully reswaddled the kitten, holding it close, rocking gently. "Okay, little miracle," she murmured. "Okay, you rest now. Just rest." The immediate crisis had passed, but the urgency hadn't. The mother cat. She'd promised. And this tiny survivor needed warmth, constant monitoring, and soon, food. Sarah carefully carried the swaddled kitten into her small living room, settling it into a makeshift nest of towels inside a cardboard box near the radiator. She turned the heat up, the sudden blast of warm air feeling like a benediction. The kitten nestled deeper, its breathing steadying into sleep. Sarah watched it for a precious second, the rise and fall of its tiny chest a mesmerizing testament to resilience. Then, grabbing a thicker towel and her sturdiest tote bag, she moved towards the door. She had to go back. She had to find the mother. The rain hadn't lessened. It felt colder, heavier, as Sarah retraced her steps, flashlight beam, cutting a shaky path through the downpour. The alley looked even more desolate, the overflowing bins like dark monuments. Her heart pounded with dread. Had the cat moved? Had she succumbed? Had someone else found her? Sarah swept the beam across the spot where she'd last seen the gray. Cat collapsed. Nothing. Just puddles reflecting the weak light. A cold knot tightened in her stomach. "Mama!" she called out, her voice swallowed by the rain's roar. "Where are you?" She moved deeper into the alley, the beam catching on scraps of wet cardboard, glistening puddles, the slick brick walls. Despair began to creep in again. Had she been too late? Had the cat crawled away to die alone? Then, near the far end, tucked into a recessed doorway almost invisible in the shadows, a faint movement. Sarah's breath caught. She approached slowly, the flashlight beam trembling in her hand. There she was. The mother cat lay curled tightly, trying to conserve warmth, her wet fur plastered flat. Her eyes were slits, but they opened fully as the light hit her, reflecting back that same unnerving, focused intensity, though dimmed by exhaustion and pain. Relief washed over Sarah, so potent it made her knees weak. "You're still here," she breathed. "Good girl, such a good, brave girl." Sarah knelt, keeping the light low. "I have your baby," she said softly, her voice thick with emotion. "It's warm, it's breathing, it's alive." The cat's ears twitched forward, a low, almost inaudible sound vibrating in her throat. Relief? Acknowledgement? Sarah slowly unfolded the thick towel. "I need to get you warm too, Mama. Can I pick you up, please?" She extended a hand slowly, palm down, letting the cat sniff. The feline flinched slightly, but didn't hiss or retreat. Her gaze remained fixed on Sarah's face, that strange, unwavering trust still present beneath the pain. Sarah took it as consent. Moving with infinite care, mindful of the injured leg, she slid her hands under the cat's bony frame. The cat was surprisingly light, a bundle of sharp angles and wet fur. She tensed but didn't struggle, only emitting a small, pained gasp as her leg shifted. Sarah lifted her gently, cradling her against her chest, wrapping the thick towel around her shivering body. The cat felt like ice. She buried her face in the towel, her breathing shallow and rapid. "Okay," Sarah whispered, holding the precious, fragile burden close. "Okay, let's get you home." She stood, the weight of the cat anchoring her against the buffeting wind. Turning back towards the streetlight at the alley's mouth, she felt a surge of determination mixed with profound exhaustion. They had survived the first impossible hurdle, but the journey was far from over. The mother cat needed a vet, urgently. The kitten needed constant care. And the mystery, the why of this desperate rescue mission, the strange intensity in the cat's eyes, hung heavy in the rain-slicked air. Back in the apartment, Sarah placed the mother cat's towel-wrapped form near the radiator, close to the box where the kitten slept. She offered water in a shallow dish, which the cat lapped at weakly, her eyes never leaving the box. Sarah watched, mesmerized, as the mother cat, despite her own agony, stretched her neck towards the sleeping kitten, sniffing the air, a low, vibrating purr rumbling in her chest, a sound of profound relief and primal connection that resonated deep within Sarah's own weary bones. She sank onto the floor beside them, her back against the wall, finally allowing herself to feel the full weight of the past hour. She had 2 fragile lives depending on her now. The immediate danger had passed, but a new kind of tension settled in. The tension of recovery, of vulnerability, of the unknown road ahead. She carefully unwrapped the towel from the mother cat, trying to assess the leg injury without causing more pain. The leg hung at a sickening angle, definitely broken, possibly old and badly healed, or freshly aggravated. The cat flinched but endured the inspection, her eyes half closed, her purr subsiding into a soft, pained hum. Sarah fetched a clean cloth, soaked it in warm water, and gently began cleaning the mud and grime from the cat's fur, avoiding the injured limb. As she worked, her fingers brushed against something unusual beneath the thick fur near the cat's shoulder. Not a mat, but something hard and flat, sewn or embedded somehow. Her fingers traced its edges, rectangular, about the size of a large postage stamp. What on earth? A microchip? But it felt different. Rougher, like thick paper or card, encased in something waterproof. The mystery deepened, coiling like smoke in her mind. What was this cat carrying? Why? The mother cat seemed undisturbed by the discovery, her focus entirely on the sleeping kitten, her purr returning as Sarah's gentle ministrations continued. The warmth of the radiator was finally seeping into her shivering body. Sarah finished, cleaning her as best she could, then covered her with a dry towel. The cat sighed, a deep, shuddering breath, and closed her eyes, though her ears remained pricked towards the kitten's box. The immediate crisis had stabilized, but the fragility was palpable. The kitten's survival was still touch and go. The mother's leg needed professional attention Sarah couldn't provide. And that hidden object, a secret stitched into fur. Sarah leaned back, watching them. The tiny miracle kitten breathing softly in its nest. The mysterious, broken guardian resting nearby, finally safe for a moment. The storm still raged outside, but inside, a fragile peace had descended, woven from exhaustion and shared survival. She knew the reprieve was temporary. Morning would bring harsh realities, vet bills, critical care, decisions. But for now, in the quiet hum of the radiator and the soft, synchronized breathing of her unexpected charges, Sarah allowed herself a moment of quiet awe. She had witnessed something beyond explanation tonight. A life returned from the brink, guided by a creature whose mission defied understanding. The mother cat had delivered her silent offering, and against all odds, Sarah had answered the call. What would you have done when you saw that tiny life flicker back? Share your moment of hope below. The peace was shattered by a sudden, wet, gurgling cough from the kitten's box. Sarah's head snapped around. The tiny creature was convulsing, its body jerking, a thin trickle of milky fluid bubbling from its nose and mouth. Its breathing, so steady moments before, was now ragged, strangled gasps. The mother cat was instantly alert, struggling to rise, a low moan of distress escaping her. Sarah scrambled forward, her heart plummeting. No, not now, not after everything. She scooped the kitten up, cradling it, trying to clear its airway with her finger, but the convulsions worsened. Its tiny body went rigid, then limp. Its chest stopped, just like in the alley. Sarah stared, horror-struck, as the fragile life she'd fought so hard to save, the life she held cradled in her hands, stopped breathing. Again. The silence this time was deafening, final. The mother cat let out a sound Sarah had never heard before, a high, keening wail of pure, shattered agony that echoed the scream trapped in Sarah's own throat. She stopped breathing in my hands. Sarah's world imploded. The tiny body in her hands was utterly still, colder than the rain outside. The mother cat's keening wail sliced through the apartment's fragile peace, a sound of pure, shattered despair that mirrored the icy void cracking open in Sarah's chest. Not again. Please, not again. Time didn't slow. It fractured. 1 second, the kitten was breathing. The next, stillness. The silence roared louder than the storm. Instinct, primal and desperate, overrode the paralyzing horror. Sarah didn't think. She acted. Cradling the limp form, she dropped to her knees beside the radiator, laying the kitten flat on the towel. Her fingers, slick with panic, found the tiny chest. No flutter. No rise. Nothing. The memory of the alley CPR flooded back, the fragile puff of air, the feather-light compressions. Do it. Now. She tilted the tiny head, sealed her lips over its minuscule nose and mouth, and breathed. A tiny, controlled puff. She felt the chest expand fractionally. Hope was a distant dying star. 1, 2, 3, compressions with 2 trembling fingers. feather light, impossibly delicate, yet carrying the weight of 2 lives. Breathe. Another puff. The mother cat dragged herself closer, her broken leg forgotten, her amber eyes wide, unblinking pools of terror fixed on her baby. Her low moan was a constant, agonized counterpoint to Sarah's ragged breaths. 1, 2, 3, breathe. 1, 2, 3, breathe. Sweat beaded on Sarah's forehead, mingling with tears she hadn't realized were falling. The kitten remained a cold, silent doll. Despair threatened to swallow her whole. She'd failed. Twice. This fragile spark, reignited against impossible odds, was guttering out in her hands. Her arms trembled with exhaustion, the rhythmic compressions feeling futile, absurd. 1, 2, 3, breathe. Then, a sound. Not from the kitten, from the mother, a low guttural chirrup. Not the keening wail, but something softer, insistent. Sarah glanced up, tears blurring her vision. The gray cat was inches away, her gaze locked not on the kitten, but directly into Sarah's eyes. It wasn't despair Sarah saw now. It was a fierce, burning command. Don't stop. Believe. That look, ancient and unwavering, struck Sarah like a physical force. It reignited a stubborn ember deep within her. She sucked in a breath, focused every shred of her will, and bent again. 1, 2, 3, breathe. She poured her own desperate hope into that tiny puff of air. 1, 2, 3, breathe. A tremor. Fainter than the first time, a ghost of movement beneath her fingers on the kitten's chest. Sarah froze, holding her own breath. Another tiny gasp, wet and ragged. Then another. The kitten's side hitched, its tiny mouth opened slightly, drawing in a shuddering breath. Then another. The breaths were weak, irregular, but undeniably there. Life, clinging on by the thinnest thread. Sarah slumped back, gasping, her body trembling violently. She hadn't realized she'd been crying until she felt the wetness on her cheeks. The mother cat immediately pressed her nose against the kitten, sniffing frantically, then began licking its face with rough, urgent strokes, her purr erupting, a deep, vibrating rumble of pure, desperate relief that filled the yow. Small room. Sarah watched, tears flowing freely now, a sob of sheer, overwhelming gratitude escaping her lips. She reached out a trembling hand, not towards the kitten, but to gently rest it on the mother cat's head, between her ears. The cat didn't flinch. She leaned into the touch for a fraction of a second, her purr intensifying, a silent communion passing between them. Shared terror, shared relief, a bond forged in the crucible of death's doorstep. "You incredible creature," Sarah whispered, her voice raw. "You never stopped believing." She carefully lifted the kitten, still weak but breathing steadily now, and placed it back in its warm nest, the mother cat instantly curling protectively. Around it, her purr, a constant soothing hum. Dawn was a gray smear against the rain-streaked window when Sarah finally dared to move. The immediate danger had passed again, but the mother cat's leg was a swollen, grotesque angle. The kitten needed constant warmth and soon, nourishment. The 24-hour emergency vet clinic was 30 minutes away. Every minute counted. Wrapping. The mother cat carefully in a thick blanket supporting her broken leg, Sarah placed her in the tote bag, leaving the top open so she could see. The kitten, swaddled in a warm fleece, nestled securely in Sarah's arms. The drive was a blur of tension and rain-slicked roads. Sarah kept glancing down at the kitten, checking the rise and fall of its chest, whispering reassurances to the mother cat whose amber eyes watched her unblinkingly from the bag. The shared silence was heavy with unspoken fears. What if the kitten crashed again? What if the leg was beyond repair? What if the cost was more than Sarah could bear? The fluorescent lights of the clinic were harsh after the dim apartment. The vet, a woman named Dr. Evans with kind eyes and a brisk efficiency, took charge. Sarah's words tumbled out. The alley, the rain, the near death, the revival, the broken leg, the hidden something. She mentioned the hard rectangle under the fur. Dr. Evans listened intently, her gaze shifting between the fragile kitten and the watchful mother. The examination was tense. The kitten, dubbed Tiny by the nurse for chart purposes, was critically weak but stable, needing warmth, fluids, and careful monitoring. The mother cat, named Ash by Sarah in that moment for her gray fur, endured the prodding of her leg with stoic silence, her eyes only leaving Tiny when the kitten let out a faint mowl. X-rays confirmed Sarah's fear. An old, badly healed break, recently refractured. Surgery was necessary, complex, expensive. Sarah felt the ground shift beneath her. The number Dr. Evans mentioned was staggering, far beyond her diner wages. Despair threatened again. Dr. Evans saw the look on her face. "She brought you her dying baby," she said softly, gesturing to Ash, who was watching Tiny receive fluids through a minuscule IV. "She chose you. There's a story here we don't understand. Yet, we can work out a payment plan. Let's focus on saving them first." While Ash was prepped for surgery and Tiny rested in an incubator, Dr. Evans carefully shaved a small patch of fur near Ash's shoulder where Sarah had felt the object. Beneath the matted fur, encased in a crude, waterproof pouch seemingly made from laminated plastic and tightly stitched with coarse thread, was a small faded photograph. Dr. Evans carefully extracted it, her eyes widening slightly. She handed it to Sarah. The photo was creased and water-stained, but the image was clear. A little girl, maybe 5 years old, with bright eyes and a gap-toothed smile, holding a tiny, fluffy gray kitten. The kitten's eyes were the same unmistakable, intense amber as Ash's. And the little girl, Sarah's breath left her body in a rush. She knew that smile. She knew those eyes. It was Maya, her daughter, lost to a swift, brutal illness 3 years ago. The world tilted. Sarah clutched the photo, her vision blurring. Maya's kitten, the one she'd begged for, loved fiercely, for just a few precious months before everything ended. Sarah had thought the kitten ran away in the chaos of grief. Or perhaps she couldn't bear to think about it. She'd shut that memory away, a raw wound buried deep. Ash was Maya's kitten. This broken, determined creature had somehow survived the streets, injury, time. And she had found Maya's mother. She had brought Maya's last living connection, her own grand kitten, impossibly born and saved, back to Sarah. Not just for the kitten's sake, but for Sarah's. The mission wasn't just rescue. It was return. It was a message carried across years of loss and loneliness, stitched into fur against all odds. The mystical purpose Sarah had sensed in the alley, the unwavering focus. It was love. Maya's love, enduring through this remarkable feline, guiding her home. Sarah sank into a plastic chair, the photo pressed to her heart, tears flowing silently, a torrent of grief, disbelief, and a dawning, profound awe. Ash hadn't just saved Tiny, she was pulling Sarah back from a different kind of death, the slow fading of hope after loss. The hours that followed were an agony of waiting. Tiny fought, his tiny body responding slowly to the fluids and warmth. Ash's surgery was long and delicate, but Dr. Evans emerged finally, looking tired but satisfied. "She's tough," she said. "The repair was complex, but she came through. She'll need strict rest, pins in that leg for a while, but she should recover well." She paused, looking at Sarah holding the photo. "The connection?" "My daughter's cat," Sarah whispered, the words thick with emotion. "My daughter, she's gone. This is her kitten. And that," she nodded towards the incubator, "is her grand kitten." Dr. Evans's eyes softened with understanding. "Some bonds," she said quietly, "transcend everything." Bringing them home days later was a different kind of journey. Tiny, officially named Ember for the spark that refused to die, was still frail but growing stronger, his tiny purr a miracle every time. Ash, her leg encased in a bright blue cast, moved with a new, careful dignity, her watchful eyes never straying far from Ember or Sarah. The apartment, once echoing with loneliness, was now filled with the soft sounds of their existence, the rustle of blankets, the click of ashes cast on the floorboards, Ember's tiny muse. The bonding moments unfolded naturally, healing the fractures left by fear. Sarah would wake to find Ash pressed against her side, her purr a deep vibration. In the quiet dawn, Ember curled between them. Eye contact with Ash held a new depth, a shared understanding of loss, survival, and the fragile, reclaimed gift of family. When Sarah gently changed Ash's bandages, the cat would lean into her touch, a silent transfer of trust. And when Ember stumbled during his first wobbly explorations, tumbling with a tiny squeak, the shared glance between Sarah and Ash, a moment of fleeting panic instantly soothed, cemented their unspoken pact. Weeks turned into months. Ember grew into a playful, mischievous shadow, his amber eyes sparkling with life. Ash's cast came off, replaced by a slight permanent limp, a badge of her incredible journey. She remained a quiet, watchful presence, often found gazing out the window, but her contentment was palpable, a deep, warm hum resonating in her chest whenever she was near Sarah or Ember. One rainy afternoon, much like the one that brought them together, Sarah sat on the floor, Ember batting at a feather toy in her lap. Ash lay nearby, meticulously grooming her now glossy gray fur. Sarah picked up the faded photo of Maya and the tiny Ash, the edges softened by her frequent touch. She looked at Ash, then at Ember, the living legacy. "She found her way back, Maya," Sarah whispered, tears pricking her eyes. But they were different tears now, laced with sorrow, yes, but also with a profound, healing gratitude. "She brought a piece of you back to me, and a whole new piece of life." She placed the photo gently beside Ash, who paused her grooming, looked at it, then slowly nudged it with her nose before resting her head near it, her purr deepening. It wasn't just a return. It was a circle closed and a new one beginning, born from the deepest darkness and nurtured by an unbelievable act of love across species and time. Some angels have fur, and some healings begin with a broken creature carrying hope home.